Coming to you from the Loading Ready Run orbiting underground moon base, it's the LRRcast.
We're not doing the whole thing?
I'm sorry, who are you?
Fuck. Dude, you always do this.
Security.
And
Right in front of the LRRcast.
and I am Paul, and joining me today is
Cameron?
Alex.
alrighty. And today, so we thought we would talk about
You guys.
you guys, yes. Because really, this podcast, even though it's called the LRRcast and it's us all, the Loading Ready Run people, talking all the time, it's really about you guys, is what's important.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And so...
You lied to me.
Cam, the check's in the mail. Don't worry about it.
So I had the idea that we would talk about fan stories. So fan interaction stories. I mean, Loading Ready Run has been going now for a number of years, as you all know. And it's in that time, I mean, how much we actually get recognized in public obviously varies greatly depending on the
It's still
location.
very, very cute to me.
Oh, yeah.
And entertaining.
I mean,
Because-
if you're at like PAX or a convention
Well, then,
or
yeah.
something, then it becomes a little bit more clear.
But like every once in a while, like I'll have somebody at YJ or like on a bus identify me. Actually, when we were doing Gishwis, which is a scavenger hunt, myself and a couple of our friends, we were all wearing tutus on the bus, and a fan spotted me and was just like, "Oh man, I love your stuff. Is this for a video?" Or
It's like,
something like
sort
that.
of.
It's like kind of, but
It's good that,
but
like-
good to meet you.
Yeah, it's like we've established, like if you were, say, some like rock star or something, seeing you on the bus in a tutu, somebody would be like, "Oh man, I just saw that guy. It's so embarrassing." But the way we've established, seeing somebody, one of us in a goofy costume, is not something that anybody would actually.
It's not really that
yeah.
peculiar.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, people would just take it in stride. I'm beginning to worry, though, that, like, you remember the Coney guy? Who just had the breakdown where he was naked on the side of the road,
Right.
dancing around? If that happened to me and I just had a complete episode,
Do you
I
think
mean,
that's
people
like-
would just be like, "Oh, no, it's a sketch."
do you think that's
right?
likely to happen?
That might have some utility. It's just like, hey, guess what? You can go on like some sort of meltdown and not lose your career over it. People just be, that Cameron always
Yeah.
getting naked and like screaming at bottles.
Yeah,
It's like, oh yeah, that was really funny the first time you did it.
yeah, but like, you keep
Seems
mining your
yeah.
past for
Seems really
material.
derivative now.
Just like Screamgate is so over.
No, it's performance art.
So yeah, I mean, this is what I want to talk about, is this idea, meeting people maybe in unexpected locations, or maybe people who you wouldn't expect to have known who you are, or situations. I know one of my favorite things. This was a very long time ago, but I always remember. When we were doing this was when we were doing our live show at the Fringe Festival, and Jer and Matt came back from like going to lunch or something at like the McDonald's that was just down the street, and they were like, so we kind of got recognized, except we got recognized like we were wearing Loading Ready Run t-shirts because we were doing the show, and the people recognized the t-shirts. And they're like, "Oh, hey, you've got Loading Ready Run t-shirts. Those guys are awesome." But didn't actually recognize them as the actors.
That's so marvelous. Oh man, it's like the Biebs wears a shirt with his own face on it. It's like, oh man, I love that guy. He's so cool. It's like, I'm not even wearing makeup. Oh, what a drag.
What would you say is the most unexpected time that you've been? Like, have you been recognized by somebody when, like, not in Victoria and not at like a geek convention or something, but you're just like going somewhere for some other reason, and you happen to run across another person?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in Vancouver and been recognized on the street, but honestly, I don't recall the events in any great clarity. I mean,
The person punched you in the face right after.
it's possible, and
Yeah.
just like those neurons are all gone now.
Yeah.
But my life has been arranged in such a way that I haven't done much traveling that isn't LRR related in the last few years
It's
because
true,
I've
it's
been
true.
like
We
a
don't
flat
get out
broke
much.
student. Although that may change, who knows? And I've been recognized in Calgary when I was working there.
Oh, nice.
But it always follows the same pattern of somebody being like on the bus with me for like half an hour, and then when they get up to leave, they're like, "I really like your stuff,"
Oh.
and they walk off. And
I mean, that's they're being
they're being respectful
respectful.
of personal space,
Which is really nice.
yeah.
And-
I really appreciate that.
and respectful of the idea that if they talk to you at the beginning of the trip and you turn out to be an asshole,
Yeah, then we're
then
both.
it's going to be super awkward for the rest of the trip.
yeah, you're trapped in here with me.
I got spotted in Baltimore for Otakon.
Really?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was just like there's like a sea of people coming on. They're just like, "You're that guy." I was like, "I am that guy," and then they just like got swept away.
There's always the like, I hope it's Loading Ready Run you're recognizing me from.
Yeah.
He just like
yeah.
starts loosening his jacket, like, "Uh-oh."
Well, I remember for a while after we did the 3 PS3s video,
Oh man.
Oh.
that was one of those things where that video got, I mean, as well as being really popular, it also was popular with maybe a slightly different group of people.
Right.
And so there were a lot of people who knew that video but didn't know Loading Ready Run.
Right.
Which is part of the reason why people were like thought it was
I bet
not-
you.
thought it was serious.
Yeah,
Right.
I was gonna say. I bet you there's something similar to that with like nunchuck fail. I mean, considering that made
Could
it all
be.
the way to.
I don't know if Graham has ever actually been recognized for nunchuck fail.
I don't know.
as
It's
separate
like, hey,
from
you're that guy who.
I mean, it was sort of
biffed in the
deliberately kind of
nuts."
low res and stuff, so it might not.
Right.
But I remember like when we went down to Comic-Con. This was many years ago. We
So-
took the little short bus
Oh,
down.
man.
The
That-
editorial we.
That was quite quite a thing.
That was quite a thing. But I was just walking through the show floor, and some random guy with his friends was like, "Hey, you're the 3PS3s guy," and he was like with his friends, and I was like, "I really hope he's not going to try and punch me or beat me
It's
up or
okay,
something." But he was actually totally cool.
Okay.
That's good because like some of the response for that video was really hostile.
Yeah.
Because
I
people
mean,
were like, "Oh, well, you have 3 PS3s and I have a life," or it's just like, "I hope you eat a
I-
bunch of broken glass or something."
yeah, there's like, I'm going to punch you in the face so hard that your glasses break, and then the shards of glass go into your eyes.
What is it with like internet commenters and being like just really just unnecessarily detailed with their like torture murder fantasies?
Yeah.
That's a
It's
lot
the
to
details
unpack.
that
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
it's-
Well, I mean, they're sitting there. They've got a keyboard and tons of time.
Yeah.
and no
like,
repercussions.
you
That's
get,
yeah,
just
so
like,
you
you get
You're-
bored
you're-
of just saying, I hate
I'm gonna
you,
kick
and I
your
want you
ass.
to
It's just
die.
like-
So yeah, I mean, what else is there to do but write comments that your ass can't cash?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure nobody.
Mom,
for
give me
the-
some
certainly
chocolate
for
milk.
the 3PS3's video, I'm pretty sure that nobody who was commenting on that video was actually, interested in causing any confrontations in real life.
I would imagine so.
But
Are these men dangerous? No, Donnie. These men are cowards.
that actually happened. There's also one time with the like, it was here in Victoria, but it was on Canada Day, and we had just been down at like the Inner Harbor and the fireworks and all the stuff, and so this huge crowd of people. And we were just like leaving downtown, and again, a couple guys were just like coming back the other way, super drunk, and be like, "Hey, 3PS3's guy."
Uh-oh.
Is this about to be a rumble?
It was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. They were laughing and
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
But
so no need to be like.
but it was again. It's a thing. It's so weird to have, and it's happened with Unskippable And I'm pretty sure Graham has gotten it with like the idiot room, where it's like people who know one part, but not the rest.
Okay.
Like I've gotten recognized for Unskippable, just from my voice. People recognize.
Really?
Like it's like, and then you're like, oh, you're from you guys did Unskippable, and then you sort of go, have you seen the other stuff we've done? Like, you guys do other stuff? Like, yes, there's this whole other thing that we do that's on each. Forget it.
Don't even worry about it. I'm trying to think of like the situations where I end up encountering people, because I've had, I think, a handful of people just like spot me on the street, and the exchanges are usually very brief. They're just sort of like, "Oh man, I love your stuff. Thanks, bye."
I love your stuff.
It's it's nice.
Whatever it is. I don't
at
care
conventions, you get a little bit more of the like, some people like came there specifically to say hello to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's nice, like, because at conventions you have, like, often we have like a table or something, like a spot where people can actually like know that you're going to be there,
right?
And kind of plan, and as opposed to just like a chance meeting when they're going somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, I remember going to a con once and seeing Kate Beaton and standing in line and getting like a thing signed and being like, "I really like your work," and she's like, "Thanks." And I was like, well, I guess, like, what else is there to say, really? And I didn't quite know how to finish the comment, and she didn't really seem to have any, like, greater detail that needed to be going into. Like, the exchange was concluded at that point.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started getting that from people that I also realized that I had no idea what to say after that either, right? It's like, thank you, I appreciate that.
I have nothing else to offer.
Yeah.
There's always the my problem, what I call the happy birthday problem, right? When somebody says happy birthday to you, you instinctively try to say happy birthday back.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I love your work. I love your work.
Well, it's like at the airport. It's just like, have a nice flight, you Tim.
Yeah. Enjoy your food. Thanks, you too. Right? Like,
it's like, God damn it.
It reveals the fundamental thoughtlessness.
Yeah.
Right?
So.
Also, of course, the thing with like someone, like Kate Beaton or whatever, it's like, I love your work. It's like, really? Because I thought you stood in line all this time to get my signature.
Yeah, it's like,
because you hated everything I did.
Yeah, it's like, tell me something I don't know, asshole. Right? Thanks for wasting both of our time.
But I mean, that being said, of course, it's all like, it's certainly still a thrill, and it makes my day.
Yeah.
Especially if it's in sort of an unexpected situation. I remember one time I was actually just like, I was waiting for Graham. Like, Graham was I think he was like at a show or something, and so it was just letting out when I got there, and so he was just coming out, with all this whole group of people were all coming out all at the same time, and I was just kind of standing there waiting for him, and I overheard two people whispering to each other, being like, "That's the Loading Ready Run guy." And you're going, I'm like, you could say hi and talk.
I mean, it's like, it's kind of, it is kind of cute. And it's weird for me because, like, I think I'm just like this regular ass schlubbo person, and like at conventions you see people just like like barely containing themselves. It's like, be cool. It's just like, dude, it's like, I'm not actually that special or interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm super flattered that you came all this way just to say hello.
Obviously, you need to work harder on not being special.
Yeah, right.
Be less interesting. I remember it was at Anime Evolution, I think, in Vancouver.
That was such a good show.
This is the first year we went where it was in...
Yeah, that was before it sort of like blew up and then like rebuilt or something.
Yeah, but so this was when it was at like the downtown convention center, and they were doing it all up, and we had a panel and all this stuff, and we had a signing thing after the panel, and these two girls came up and were like, "Oh, we love your stuff. We've been watching you. You've been watching your stuff like since season 1, and we're so excited to meet you guys." And it's that thing where you like look at them and do some quick mental math. You're like, these girls are 14. We've been doing stuff for 6 years. The stuff we did in year 1 should not have been viewed by 8-year-olds. Yeah.
But it's just like, thank you for patroning our content.
Yeah. Well, I remember like Gabe talking about that, or Gabe or Tycho talking about like how they will encounter kids at shows who are like, "I love your stuff." right? And they're there with their parents,
Yes.
and they're like 12,
The
11.
the fruit friend.
Yeah, fruit friend.
Oh wow!
Right, and they're like,
oh.
oh.
This is awkward.
Ugh.
Ugh. Yeah. Where to go with this? Okay. I mean, like, most of the encounters I have are just, like, very genial. They're very friendly. I encountered a fan on the street a couple of, maybe last month, maybe 2 months ago, who asked for a hug.
Nice.
And normally that's inside my boundaries, but for some
Yeah.
reason that was fine. I didn't
Well, I
mind
mean,
it
it
at
sort
all.
of depends on the person, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have this very weird relationship with like physical affection where it relates to strangers,
Yeah.
because I know that hugging is like the internet like handshake,
Yeah.
and I understand that, but it's just like I'm not really that okay with that. You know, it's something that I prefer to do with people who I'm like familiar with and have like,
Yeah.
built up that sort of
Yeah, normally I'm...
like relationship with, and I don't know, it's just like just kind of different strokes, if you ask me. And I'm sort of torn because I feel impolite. It's like you try to do that thing where it's just like, yes, how about a nice handshake instead, or I don't know. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's fine.
It's-
Other times I'm just like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
like
today.
I
I
don't
can't.
do personal contact generally as a person. Like, I'll hug my mother, but otherwise,
But but I think the real thing with that is that it's asking, say, can
Yeah.
I have a hug or whatever, is perfectly
yeah,
respectful.
thank
respectful.
shit.
Yeah. I have
We-
conventions can be an issue for being
I was gonna say, it's like, I'm so glad that we hopefully occupy a post-glomping phase.
I was going to say that I
so-
have
Fandom.
anime conventions are particularly bad for that.
Well,
but-
like that was bad for a while. Like I heard that cons started having to pass policies because it's like all these Sephiroth cosplayers were getting their spines broken.
Why is
Not
Sephiroth in
literally,
particular?
but like, well, because people would just be like, "Oh my God, you're my Bishi," and like football tackle them.
Right.
It's like, that's a stranger.
yeah.
They're wearing a costume of a
a
character that you
stranger
like, but
also
you
carrying
just,
a 9-foot-long sword.
it's like
Maybe
you
don't
just
want to-
assaulted someone
Yeah.
because you thought it was cute. So that luckily doesn't seem to happen so much anymore, and certainly I don't think it's happened to any of us.
No.
No,
I-
well, not for a while anyway.
Yeah, it's ugh.
But asking permission for physical contact
Yes, please.
yes. Plus.
is very
Consent.
good. But then again, don't
Don't feel intimidated.
don't feel that you can't ask, and don't be insulted if the answer is no.
Yeah.
I'm covered in bees presently.
Yeah.
You don't want this.
Yeah, I have invisible bees. It's a visible, quiet, silent bees.
Right. So what about like online interactions?
Have you like? I guess, I mean, now it's all like social media, Twitter type stuff. Is there situations where you have contacted somebody or talked to somebody because you're a fan of their work or you're excited about talking to them,
Occasionally.
and then found out that they actually know who you are?
No. No.
Or like doing, I mean, I know it's happened sometimes with like Twitch streams or something where you like hang out in somebody's Twitch stream.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then people like find out, that, if you're on the Loading Ready Run account or you're on your own account or whatever.
I've made a couple of pretty good friends off of various sort of like, I guess they sort of started as fan interactions, and then we just started, chatting more frequently, and then, friends. But it's like, it's not everybody, and it's like occasionally a little uncomfortable when like I get the sensation that somebody is like mining for that.
yeah.
Like they're putting on something and trying to be really interesting, and you're like, are you trying to be my friend? And if so, for what reason?
Yeah.
It's like, is it? It's so hard to assess online people's actual intentions because it's all just like no inflection text,
Right.
you know, and it could just be like maybe they just wanted to tell me something cool about their day, or send me like 15 messages in a row. It's like
yeah.
I don't know how to read it.
No, I mean, I've made some friends online via interactions through LRR, and that's been great. A lot of the time, I just don't know quite how to interact through Twitter, though. It's like that entire like social media. Well, I was going to say medium, but that's redundant. All of social media is very new, right? Like it's epistolary, right? Like you're writing letters back and forth, but the response is immediate, and the format is so short.
I know
and so
it's
brief.
a very weird new communication tool, and it is like,
I mean,
like it's
Twitter in particular is obviously with the character limit and stuff can be difficult to have any kind of interesting conversation.
Well, it's very well
Right.
suited to a very particular brief anecdotal form of conversation, and like as a sort of like miniature soapbox for like, god damn it, for small little things. Go
Disrespectful.
away. I'm so sorry. Because it is so short, but then like immediately once people start trying to actually carry on conversations, and then conversations with multiple people, it just like crashes and burns.
Yeah, well, then you have
You
people
can't do it.
responding to like
You cannot.
various stages.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. But that being
mean,
said, I
it's-
think Twitter lends itself very nicely to the people I have met online and have turned into friendships have all attracted my attention because they use Twitter very efficiently. And Twitter is like really nice because people who use language efficiently
Yeah.
thrive on it.
Oh, it's
And like
it's real nice.
it turns my head instantly, right? Like
You're
people
just like
who
a
can be
little
like
poem.
pithy and expressive on Twitter are usually really delightful to have conversations with.
So you're saying if you want to be Cam's friend on Twitter, don't be like, tweet and then have it in the corner like 1 of 30.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, don't do
2
that,
of 30.
and don't use like the terrible contractions. Like I know there's a character limit, but like using texting language like just makes you look like an imbecile.
I like that even in Twitter with the character limits and stuff, it's still like you can use proper grammar.
Yeah, it's like,
Or proper spelling anyway.
Man, okay, so this
come at
wasn't-
me like Nabokov.
This wasn't a fan, but I had this conversation with somebody on like a chatting site of some sort, and he got mad at me because I used full sentences and like capitalization and like words and shit. Like it
Thought that you were
it
like
made him angry
putting on airs.
because it's like, well, why? Let's say, why the fuck are you using punctuation and shit? It's like it's just chat. It's like because I want to
slow down there, college. Like,
It was surreal because like and then he asked me a couple of questions about stuff, and I like answered in the way that I would normally, and he just kept getting madder and madder because I spoke coherent English and articulated ideas.
Did you start using longer and more flowery language? Just to
Oh,
annoy him?
probably. Because it's like, what the fuck kind of anti-intellectual horseshit is that?
yeah.
Like, it's like you're actually just angry because I'm throwing you into sharp contrast.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why you're mad. It's like,
Nice.
what the fuck?
What about other tools that? Well, I mean, like Paul, you don't use Twitter at all.
No.
Right.
No. So obviously, yeah. So that my fan interactions do tend to be more
IRL.
IRL, I guess, and also, I mean, through email and stuff as well. I've had several quite interesting email correspondences with people. Usually ended by me failing to keep up my end. But
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Such
Yeah.
is the way. Unfortunately, it's you have so much.
I feel
all this
kind of
stuff.
bad. I get so many notes on Tumblr of just like fan mails, and like some of it is just like no need to reply. I just wanted to say you're great, and I have no idea how to respond to it because like my first impulse.
There's no need to reply.
I know, but my first impulse is to contradict them. Just be like, you are mistaken. You must be thinking of some sort of other
different
person.
Alex, yeah.
But it shows up in this weird volume. That still feels really weird to say because like my Tumblr inbox is where I get like asks and stuff, and people will just sometimes like if I'm not having a great day, they'll just like flood me with it's just like, oh, you're super good, and you're like this positive influence on my life and stuff. And I was like, I have no idea how to process this.
Yeah.
This is like, and it's like there's nothing wrong with the message. It's just like I actually don't know what to make of it. because like my own perspective of myself is pretty warped, and
Right.
when this like huge contradiction comes like in such a like quantity, it's weird for me to deal with.
Yeah.
But
Well,
in a nice way.
In a nice way. I'm like, no, the psychic battle of
what about Twitch chat? Like, that provides like a lot of immediacy.
Twitch chat is interesting because it's like it's even more brief than Twitter and even more ephemeral than Twitter because it's like just like
Well, actually,
coming at you.
yeah, and I guess
There's-
it's actually incorrect to call it immediate because there is a time delay, like, and a very perceptible one, like a 30-second.
So yeah, I guess there's the interactions when you're streaming and talking to the chat, and then there's things where you're actually typing as well. But
Right.
Well, the interactions with the chat, sometimes they sort of behave as a gestalt entity, and
It's
other
true.
times, it will be one individual like popping out and saying like something really clever, and or like starting some sort of like line of conversation for everybody, or like founding some sort of or coining some sort of term that catches on.
Right.
So it's this weird, like the chat's this weird, like kind of amorphous blob that occasionally like will assume like one face for a little while and then that'll
Right.
like sink back into the mass. And
I mean, it is amazing. I mean, obviously, we are. You don't want to say that everybody's the same or anything like that. But it is amazing how the chat as a whole kind of takes on a certain character or
Right.
something, and you especially when you're streaming and stuff, you can you can often predict the responses. Sometimes like if you are doing something in particular in the thing, you'll like do that thing and then look over at the chat and be like,
it's like, yeah. Well, I think
and
you're
then-
right about the chat like assuming its own character, which is really weird because it's hundreds of people
Right.
like adopting like a shared persona, and they'll sort of carry on with their own like little threads of conversation back and forth, and then if something happens, they'll unify sort of spontaneously in like one response,
they
and,
can
like
call
a
you a
wall
scrub
of
or whatever.
the
Yeah.
scrubber is like a wall of like air horns and stuff, and it's just
Yeah.
like it's very fascinating to watch
Because like one of the things that strikes me about Twitch chat now that I think about it, that's probably a contradiction in terms, is that a lot of the time I feel like a very distant participant in my own stream chat because it is delayed for me. And
it's hard to keep up sometimes.
well, it's not just hard to keep up, but it's functionally impossible for a lot of discussions that happen. Like, frequently, there are things happening in my Twitch chat, and I don't really have the option of participating in the conversation that's going on,
like-
because I'm 30 seconds behind. And
yeah.
so, like, there was a book by David Eagleman written a few years ago and called Some, which is 40 Tales from the Afterlife, and it was like supposed to be all of these different like page-long mini stories about what happens after you die. And one of them, you go and meet God, and God, as it turns out, has been hands off for millennia, and like no longer practices miracles because humans are too sophisticated, and we see the strings, right? And it ends with like God describing like feeling like a grandparent at a family reunion, looking down the long table at all of their descendants and feeling a little out of place and a little overwhelmed. Right? That this is kind of like ostensibly the result of what you're doing, but you have no.
But it's become its own thing.
Yeah, it's become its own thing, and it's elusive now.
And it tends to be more people are sort of talking about you as opposed to with you, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
As and you can talk, you obviously can interact, but then it's like you say like oh, that was this is a really cool part in this particular game I'm playing, or that was a cool hit, and then after the delay or whatever, people will either be agreeing or disagreeing, or then talking about that sort of pronouncement that you made.
Yeah.
Interesting,
And,
because
well, I mean, like,
Let's all interpret the
sorry.
word
So
that
like,
came
well,
on
like you
high.
said, it's it's you're looking at this thing, and it's sort of like, I may have been the progenitor of this, but I don't own it,
What have I wrought?
and in some ways, I don't necessarily understand it.
Yeah, well, like, pronouncement, I think, is really apt, because as the streamer and as, like, the highest level moderator, because it's your chat room, you have absolute authority over what goes on in it.
Right.
But because you're also streaming and you're delayed, that authority is difficult to manage efficiently, I find. Whereas, like,
I mean, I almost
I-
never end up exercising that
yeah,
power.
and there are
Mainly
times
because
when
we
I
have
feel
good-
like I should. We have very good mods.
Yeah.
But there are times when there are no mods, and I feel like I should be doing a much more active job in moderating my own chat
Yeah.
and setting the tone. And like that's like a responsibility that I'm not actually terribly good at using. Because basically I operate in just like Wrath of God mode, right? Like somebody attracts my attention and I'm like, well, I don't know really what the etiquette is around like all these different timeouts, so just permaban, right?
It's like,
You've attracted my attention and now you're a smoldering crater in the ground. Oh, was that person a sub? Ugh,
Well,
awkward.
It's,
that's $5 we're not seeing anymore.
I'm
mean,
losing us money.
yeah, it's interesting the way talking about it, with saying dealing with the chat delay, because technically it's actually the other way around.
Right.
That we're ahead of them.
Right. Well, I mean, you're still having a conversation with someone who's on Mars.
Right.
Right? Well, not Mars,
And
because
the
that's
thing
like
is,
7 minutes. But
when they're all equal and you're ahead, it kind of ends up feeling like you are
Yeah.
behind.
Well, yeah.
somehow. Because they're all commenting on the stuff that previously happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very strange the way it works out.
Maybe as time goes on, hopefully that gap gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah, I
sometimes.
mean, because it's going to have a profound effect on how those conversations go, because in some ways, like, it's a very limiting factor on what you can talk about, as we've said. And then if that delay, which is like, again, just seconds, is removed, then it's probably going to change the entire dynamic of how you talk to people, because then you can actually have a back and forth. Well, maybe.
Yeah.
You can have a little bit of back and forth. I try to keep it pretty, like, short. Well, that's not even true. I'll just, like, go off on a tear sometimes on my own.
Yeah.
And, like,
But, I mean,
have a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to try to avoid talking to like a specific person in the chat for too
Right.
long.
Yeah. It's
But
like if they
some-
asked a question, I will answer it. And I actually, because I really like answering questions, especially where it relates to video games. So somebody's like, oh, like, how does humanity work in Dark Souls? And it's like, well, I'm going to tell you, and everybody else gets to see it as well.
Yeah,
Right,
It's
right,
just
right.
Like,
And
Yeah.
then you get on, then it's easy to sort of get off on tangents about stuff.
yeah.
But we hope that that's why you watch live, as
Yeah.
well as the gameplay is the ridiculous tangents that you get off onto.
Well, and like the reason that I enjoy playing turn-based strategy games on Twitch is, and I have gotten away from this recently as I've played more Dark Souls and Bloodborne, is that I actually like being able to like take small, even 2 or 3 second breaks from the game to interact with chat or talk about what I'm doing, which is not always easy when you're like,
It's
Nang,
always-
nang, 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 nang.
Yeah.
It's always so dangerous to like, you are like looking at the screen and you see like the little platform that you're on is like however far, and there doesn't seem to be anything dangerous. So you're like, okay, I'll push left, take a look at the screen, see
Oh,
what's going
man.
on, look
Yeah.
back, I'm dead.
Yep.
yeah,
That
There
occasionally
was
happens.
a hole that I didn't expect.
It's kind of surprising that I'm able to play Dark Souls with any amount of efficacy, with like looking back and forth. I don't know how Milt does it. Like, that guy's a savant, and like he'll be carrying on a coherent sort of like monologue as he just like weaves between all these like lethal hazards, and he's just like will pause and like think about something like aloud, and an enemy will come over and try to like kill him. He'll just be like boop. It's like, oh wait, was it that thing? Or hang on, wait, no, I know it now. Or he'll just do this thing where in the middle of a boss fight he'll figure out how he's gonna actually do it.
Right. Didn't you say that he was like fighting Capra Demon with
like
the bow?
And he was like,
actually,
oh right, how do I actually do this?
Yeah, like developing the strategy in the midst of this fight that occurs inside a tiny little area.
Yeah, he can stun lock that guy, right?
I mean, I guess the idea is that it's all basically just like muscle memory now.
Yeah, no, he's played a lot of that game, so.
What about your art streams that you do? How does the interaction work there?
It's interesting. Like, the weird part about doing home streams is, like, I have an additional constraint, which is that the chat is on my phone, displaying 3 lines at a time.
Right.
Because I don't have 2 monitors, and I can't put it on screen, because, like, it just doesn't quite work. I mean,
why such a small amount of stuff do you see at once?
Like, it's either portrait or landscape. I should probably be putting it straight up and down. I think it might just be because, like, if I put it vertically, it sits on my screen.
Right.
And if I put it horizontally, it balances nicely at the bottom. But, like, depending on the type of stream, sometimes I'll start drawing something, and someone will make a goofy suggestion, and I will immediately incorporate it into the drawing. Like, if I'm doing just a random sketch, I'm really impulsive and very easily affected by user suggestions. Sometimes, like I said, in the middle of a drawing. So it can be really nice, just when I'm doing scribbles or some sort of fan input things. Like, I'll actually organize it a lot of the time. Like, if I do a sketch for tips or a just like a draw stream, I'll open up like a spreadsheet and be like, here's the spreadsheet, put in your like username and request, and I will like get through the queue.
Right. Okay.
And then even when I'm working on it, some people will make suggestions and I'll just like add it. It's like, oh right, I'll think aloud. It's like, well, what does steampunk look like? And somebody would be like, gears on hats. And I was like, right, look up reference for that and just add gears on hats.
Well, and I mean, I guess it's a little different too with the, with the art stream, because it is sort of a more, I guess, kind of intimate setting in the sense that, I mean, not only because it's like in your own house and everything, but it's also, there tends to be sort of less people watching, but they're more kind of more interactive.
Although the flip side is that, again, depending on the drawing, sometimes the interaction will fall to nothing because I'm concentrating so hard.
Right.
Because if it's something that I'm trying to do well, or that requires a lot of my attention, like I will just. This is why I play music, is because sometimes I just have to or whether I intend to or not, I'll just like blinders on and just burn through something, and then like take a break, for a couple minutes, sort of look at it and talk to people again. So it has its own ebb and flow.
One of the tools that I found really interesting in the last year or so has been Ask.
Ask is really interesting.
I've heard, like, I know, Alex, you've been on there, and I know Graham is on there a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, it's
James as well.
It's like
I don't quite. It's it's not like Ask is like there's nothing Ask can do that couldn't be done anywhere else. It just happens to be
it's exactly the same as like an Ask on Tumblr.
Right.
But that's the entirety of the site.
Right.
It's just that one functionality distilled down to one place. And in some ways, it's, you hardly even need it because you can just do non-asks in Tumblr.
Right.
And it could be argued that it's just like an unnecessary piece of social media bloat, but it's fun. It allows for sort of like medium to long form questions and answers.
Yeah.
And it's useful because it circumvents the limitations of Twitter, where it's like somebody can actually ask me a 140 plus question and I can give them like a 140 plus answer.
Right.
That some questions deserve without me having to go like one of 15 tweets, because that drives me insane. The only thing worse than people who rather than doing a blog post tweet 15 times in one thought is the people who reblog all of it. It's stop it.
It's like I like, and I think I might do this again sometime soon. Maybe I will have already done it by the time this actually goes up. But I like doing live.
Excuse me.
Q&A stuff.
Oh, really?
You know,
right.
I mean, there's stuff we do at panels, of course, but then also just like, doing it as sometimes as part of a stream.
Right.
I think I would like that too.
And
actually. I never thought about it.
And not just, well, you have done it before.
Well,
I know.
I did the whole show about that before I did streaming for you guys. Like, I've been streaming for ages.
But
I'll talk about that.
Obviously you ask you answer questions and stuff while you're streaming, but sometimes it's good to actually be sort of concentrating on it more. So, because I don't know about you guys, but for me, I tend to be like answering somebody's question and then like playing and kind of trail off.
I've done that before, where I will start into a sentence and something will happen in the game, and like I don't notice it at the time, but people will be like. It'll be like the quote will show up in Twitch chat where it's like, well, the thing about this is that you have to think, like, and the quote ends, Cameron Lauder 2015.
Like,
yeah.
But I mean, we've talked about the thing with obviously with Twitter and with some of these other mediums is that you are limited, and I've almost got to the point where, especially like in Twitter or Facebook or forums, all this stuff, where it's like it's basically impossible to have a interesting discussion about a difficult topic,
right?
When it's done in this pure text. When people are like writing back and forth really quickly. I mean, if people are like writing articles and having them published, that's a little different.
It's like forums aren't so bad for that.
But when people, like in forums or in, like comment threads or all this kind of stuff, right? Where the things that people say, when you can't get tone of voice or inflection or, sarcasm or all this kind of stuff. And
where you have like any Yahoo like interjecting in the middle of your conversation.
Right, and I like the idea of doing when you're doing video, then that gives you much more, much more sort of bandwidth of communication, right?
Right.
It's still, I mean, it's only one way. The people who are talking to you are still text, but at least when you're you can give your responses and be reasonably sure that it's not going to be misinterpreted. Yeah. Obviously, there's still options, but at least you for me anyway, I feel like I can, because when I write text responses, for one thing, it takes me a really long time. Like whenever I try to answer people's questions in text, I always try to answer it in the most thorough way possible.
And it's
one of those things where I find that it's like, well, I just spent 2 hours answering this question.
Yeah.
Right.
Which was interesting to answer, but I probably should have been doing something else for that 2 hours.
I mean, that's what I run into on Ask, is that either it's a question that I can answer immediately in like 3 lines or 1 sentence or a word.
Or an
sometimes.
Image.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's like on Steven Universe where it's like they're trying to get Garnet to reply to this letter. And it's like, okay, I'll dictate to you. N-O, period. Right. But other times I can actually, like, a question will come in and will sit in my inbox for like a month and a half. And
God, I'm so bad about that.
And a lot of the time it's because I've ignored it, but a lot of the other time I'm thinking about it and trying to compose something, and then I'll come back with this answer, which is also like 3 words or 3 sentences.
Well, yeah, it's
but
like
sometimes I also write like TLDR .txt.
Well, it's like I have that problem all the time. Is like I'll see something and then I'll write halfway through a post in response. I'm like, this is crap. No, I have to give this like. There's something I'm trying to articulate, and I won't answer this until I can do that. And sometimes I will just forget, and never get around to it.
Yeah.
Or just be like, this deserves, my actual sort of I guess, insight or opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, unless I can sort of shape that in a way that really satisfies me,
Yeah, well-
I won't.
Yeah, like the question was asked in good faith, and I'm going to try to reply in good faith. With,
Yeah. Because who gives a shit about bad faith questions anyway?
Well, yeah, exactly.
But it's just like you gave me like a genuinely sort of interesting, serious question. It's like, well, I feel obligated to respond in kind, and that might take me a really long time, or I will just forget because I'm the worst. So don't take it personally. If you have an ask in my inbox and I haven't responded for a long time, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes that's just the sign of a good ask.
Yeah, it's just like I'm actually just like
So basically, you want to, when you ask questions, you don't want to ask bad questions, but you don't want to ask questions that are so good they'll be difficult to answer.
Yeah.
You have to get kind of mediocre questions. That's really what we want.
The ones that I will delete are a lot of times it's just like random meme lol.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
okay.
Is there a question here?
Yeah.
Is there like any sort of input? And it's just like I don't actually know what sort of response you want, or if you just wanted to just be like lol, holds up spork.
Yeah.
It's like
Slap spork out of hand.
But yeah, like the ones that I like, I think are sort of, maybe like recommendations, but I differentiate that from like what's the best X, because I can't answer those, and I usually won't. I'll be like, well, like what's the best movie? It's like, well, for fuck's sake,
but like
there's no answer to that.
A recommendation for like I'm looking for X.
Yeah, it's like, I like sci-fi. Do you know any good sci-fi? It's like, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
I will recommend a bunch of things and tell you why they're good and why they have problems. And, that's easy. But if you ask me, it's like, what's your best favorite questions? I have a lot of trouble with because I don't think I think in terms that are that binary. Like, there's exceptions, of course. There's some things where I'm like, oh my god, this is the best ever. But I don't really have like the one or two or three things that I'm like, this is the best, untouchable, nothing else comes close.
Again, narrowing the search parameters.
If you're like, what is your favorite sci-fi horror movie of the late 70s? Alien.
Yeah.
Got there.
Early 80s, The Thing. Right? Like, that I can answer.
But if the question is, what is the best thing?
Yeah, it's
What's
like
the best thing in the world? Not this question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, that's interesting. It's like my opinions don't really form around, like, best, but it's the thing that I like to talk about the most. Or that I think or maybe even I don't like to talk about. Maybe it's something that I just enjoy existing, right? Maybe I don't have anything to say about the thing.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff that I like, but it's just like a best one?
Yeah.
That's like hard to say. It's like, stuff that I really, really, really like. I'm just like, the best?
Yeah.
That's a big crown to wear.
I don't feel qualified to really give an opinion on what the best thing is. I don't, like, if you were to ask me what the best sci-fi horror movie is of the second half of the 20th century, I'm not a filmmaker. I mean, we make videos, but I have no idea. Like, maybe somebody who makes these movies is like, look, I can explain to you why the thing doesn't work very efficiently, right? And it's because, like, you can see, the effects failing here and the writing's not good here, and like, I make movies professionally, and I can see all the strings.
I think that you are misunderstanding the use of the word best in this circumstance.
Well, you know what?
I feel like, that's the thing is often words like,
best means like which thing do you like a lot?
Yeah, best, or
we take it
greatest thing ever, or all these superlatives.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just
are thrown around a lot on the internet.
Yeah, we don't generally address things in sort of such like hyperbolic terms.
Yeah,
it's like, oh my god, it's the best, greatest, most epic thing I ever. It was a movie.
Yeah,
and I watched it, and it was really good. There's something I was gonna say. I don't remember what it was though. well, gone forever. Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting.
oh wait, I remember now.
Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
it's these things are like have something in common. They're basically they're subjective,
Right.
and you can talk about objective qualities of it, and that may advise your enjoyment of it. But
But, I mean-
sometimes that it's not like magic where it's like, what's the best one-drop burn spell? Lightning bolt.
Yeah.
End of
That's-
discussion.
That's subjective. There are situations where it might not be the best.
Well, I mean, it's a little less ambiguous
But-
in that sort of situation where it's just like,
Right,
know,
but I mean, when somebody says,
But-
what's the best X, what they're saying is, what is your favorite X?
Yeah.
But even then, that's still difficult for me to answer because
So, I mean, it's interesting, like, when I proposed this topic, I initially thought I was initially thinking of, like, stories about fun stories about meeting fans at conventions or
Right.
this stuff. I didn't really expect us to go into this whole thing about actually the communication process itself.
I mean, it still relates to fans. Like,
Oh yeah,
this is interaction
and
between them.
I'm very. It's actually quite an interesting way of doing this.
Yeah. I mean,
So
Where-
basically, yeah, the thing to take away is just don't talk to us at all.
we're really difficult.
Yeah,
We're difficult.
never ask questions, never
And-
interact in
Yeah.
any way, and everyone will just be a lot happier.
Yeah. Yeah, like unless you have like the 4 hours for us to be like, and another thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Also, yeah. Actually, no. The real
Don't listen to these bosses.
the real takeaway is don't get us started on a particular topics unless you are prepared to listen to the entirety. There's nothing more annoying than people asking a question about a topic but then not actually having the time or the patience to listen to
Yeah.
the proper answer.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
like yeah, you might be the unlucky person who asked the question that I have been waiting to be asked for like 23 years.
Yeah, and you're just
being like, finally,
Finally, somebody asked me where I get my
sit
ideas.
down. Right.
I can answer them.
It's like, okay, now listen.
I've prepared a helpful PowerPoint for just this event.
I carry it.
It's
with
like,
me
I
always.
wanted a sound bite.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'll give you a bite.
It's like, so that would be yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you have anything else to add in terms of stuff?
I don't know. It's like, was there any like standout, very strange interactions you've ever had? I was just thinking, gifts that we have received
Yeah.
over the years
Yeah.
have been very interesting.
Yeah, it's always. I mean, usually, like, it's seldom that we get specific gifts for specific people. Like, more often,
It's
it'll be
only
like,
very occasionally that.
more often
have
it'll be like
something.
stuff for the crew in general or something.
Right.
But they're always quite interesting.
Well, I mean, it's always nice to get something from a fan, and you can see that they really thought about what would be sort of tuned into.
Like, for instance,
your
our-
interest, or
our
at
air
least
conditioner. That was extremely
Yeah,
relevant.
that was
to my
so
interests.
thoughtful.
Yeah.
That is one of the
That
best.
was heroic.
Yes, that is
Speaking of
actually
fans. Ha!
It is really
Honeywell
hot
is our
down
best
here.
fan.
Honeywell's so great, but like, I'm trying to think because I know we've gotten stuff, and it's going away out of my brain. No, it's
Anubis
like-
sent us those bottles of port for my
yeah.
XCOM stream, which I really appreciated.
Yep.
Those little
Those lasted a long time.
those little knitted Warriors of Darkness.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Those were super cute.
From Chemistry. Those were wonderful. And I mean, I'm not gonna attempt to name things and then forget some people and feel bad about it. But
Yeah.
people, all sorts of
We get those-
tasty candies that are not available here are
Yeah,
always,
that's-
are always interesting.
That's always interesting. Like
Sometimes a little too interesting.
I mean,
We've gotten some troll candies a few times. Gotta say.
what's
Yeah.
what's kind of bizarre
Sometimes-
about some of the candies that we get is that if they are from like a far off place and are hard to get, I sometimes sort of secretly hope that they're bad because if they're really good,
I'd be like, I can never
There's
have
that
this
much,
again.
and then never again will we get to have them. Like,
I am moving to Sweden.
I can't
Yeah.
tell you how happy I was to discover that IKEA sells like bags of dime.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
But it would be like, you're a 17th century person and you've just listened to, the Brandenburg concertos live for the first time and the last time ever in your life.
yep. It's like, well,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's gone forever
It's
now.
like all you have to do is get together an entire symphony orchestra and listen
Yeah.
to it again.
Yeah,
It's not so hard.
easy enough.
you're just like, it's too precious.
The I guess maybe to end with here, one of my favorite fan interaction, just in terms of how incredibly crazy or incredibly unlikely it was. It was here in Victoria. I was walking down the street, coming to the office, and there's a guy walking the other way, and after a while, you sort of get there is a certain look that people get on their faces
They're
as
trying
they're
to
walking, when they're like,
It's like,
"Oh, I know that person," and so I was sort of getting that feeling from this guy, and he sort of stopped me and says, "Hey, are you Paul from Loading Ready Run?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude." And it turns out this guy was from Saudi Arabia.
wow.
He was in Victoria because his brother was graduating from UVic. He didn't know this is where we were based. He was a huge Loading Ready Run fan,
Right.
and so he was there for like the weekend, and just happened to run into him. And I happened to be going to the office at the time, so I was like, "Hey, you want to just like come with me to the office?" Because I was like super excited about it.
Right.
And so he came here, and we like took some pictures with him and stuff. And he was talking about how he actually was also doing, doing like some filming stuff and sketches and things.
Right.
But just a bunch of people being silly filming stuff in public in Saudi Arabia was actually more difficult than it would be here.
Right.
Oh,
So that was actually really interesting, like the idea that it was actually something that could be dangerous
Yeah.
in another country.
Jeez.
But it was just one of these
Comedy privilege.
Yeah, I mean, really.
absolutely.
But one of
Yeah.
these incredibly crazy, coincidences that, we would meet, half all the way around the world.
It's always exciting discovering just how international can be at times. It's because like we have a fan base in Canada, in the U.S., in Australia, and then all sorts of parts of Europe. Like the Swedes really like us.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just like
Yeah, and in the UK and all, it's it's neat. We sent out the Patreon thank you notes, and while I do curse them while I'm trying to print out the labels because
left or shirt.
because Microsoft Word
Derber
has
Road.
issues with some of the extended character sets.
Right.
There's a lot of people who have umlauts and various accents, the different letters that I do not know how to pronounce
Right.
that are in their name or in the name of the city that they're from, which is very cool. But yeah, I do. Unfortunately, the way Patreon's exporting thing works makes those. I have to mess around with those to actually make them show up properly, so that hopefully these people are actually getting their thank you cards the way they should be. But anyway.
All right.
right.
Well,
Thank you very much for listening and or watching to this podcast. And thank you very much for supporting us if you do. And you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. And that supports not only this podcast and all the other podcasts, but also all the videos and the streams and everything we do on Loading Ready Run. So please support us there, or just subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. So thank you very much for listening.
Yeah. We'll see you in the future.
off you watch our